Merry Christmas and happy unnecessary lockdown days. Yet again, we are seeing the Democrats on the left trying to make people scared of COVID. Oh, the COVID. Using the Omicron variant and Christmas to prove their false points this time. Yes, they are now using a sacred holiday based on Jesus to get through their political agenda. Not mad yet? Keep watching. Season's greetings, because you're listening to Right Side of the Road. We are finally here. Christmas time is here again.
Christmas time is here again. Shove it up your vegan face.
It is Christmas Eve, and all the Democrats want you to think about is COVID. No, not your family. No, not the birth of Jesus our Savior. Only COVID. Only Omicron. I'm not kidding you. Dr. Fauci suggested you make sure every single one of your family members is vaccinated before they enter your home on Christmas. Here's him making that a rational claim.
When you get vaccinated and you have a vaccinated group and you are in an indoor setting, you can enjoy, as we have traditionally over the years, dinners and gatherings within the home with people who are vaccinated. And that's the reason why people should, if they invite people over their home, essentially ask and maybe require that people show evidence that they are vaccinated.
Sorry that cut off, by the way. Sometimes it's a little hard to find really good source videos so that you can see exactly what's happening. And before we move any further, I don't think that Christmas should be political at all, so don't go bringing these things up at the Christmas dinner table. I just want to make sure that this video is out here. I wouldn't have made a video right now if the left hadn't been making Christmas about COVID and politics, because I don't want you to hear their lies, and that's the only thing that you get. I want you to be able to counter their lies, and if the topic of politics does come up at Christmas, and it's like, say, some uncle you don't see, and they just bring up all these leftist lies that Fauci are making, shut them down. Please, shut them down. This can't be spreading. And back to Fauci. This is an absurd suggestion, what he's been suggesting. Let me put this in other words. What Fauci was just saying in the video you saw. You should be in charge of making sure that nobody enters your home on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve or whatever day you celebrate it if they don't get the jab. If they don't let people put a vaccine into their arm, because hesitancy seems kind of reasonable considering it came out a year ago. They don't let that just get injected into their arms, into their bloodstream. They can't spend quality family time on the sacred day of Christmas. This probably seems already to you pretty morally flawed, not okay, but I am going to go very in-depth so you see how flawed this is and you remember to never do this. For one, while yes, Christmas originates and is about Jesus and his birth, it is also a wonderful time to spend time with friends and family. For some people, it is the only time of year they get to see a certain family member. For others, it is the last time they may be spending with a sick family member. They don't usually let politics get in the way of that, or vaccines. All they care about is making memories with special family members. You shouldn't let a simple thing like Fauci's insane suggestions get in the way of that. As long as people aren't going to listen to the fear that Biden and Fauci keep rambling on, or in Biden's case, mumbling on about.
True international effort to pressure.
This statement is pointless. All it does is give us conservatives yet another reason to prove that they use absolutely zero reason, to use the same word, when they're making statements or trying to prove points, but their points usually don't have logic backing them. Now, 2. Back to Christmas being about Jesus. If you're not a Christian, still hear me out here. I'm not trying to convert you. I just want to point out how contrasting the ideas of Christmas and making people get the vaccine are. They don't go well together. Again, Christmas is the holiday that celebrates the birth of Jesus our Savior. It's a pretty sacred thing. We celebrate it not just for gifts and not just to make people feel bad or judge others or exclude them because they won't get the vaccine. We celebrate Christmas to celebrate Jesus and to spend time together. If Fauci's talking about Christmas at all, he's referring to this sacred holiday about coming together and celebrating Jesus. There's no secret about Christmas's origins, by the way. There's no way Fauci didn't know this. There are plenty of religious songs and there's just like All I Want for Christmas. And then there's Emmanuel.
So come, Emmanuel, light up the darkness.
They're very common. There's no way he didn't know that Christmas is religious if you wanted to make the suggestion, oh, he didn't know, he was just looking at people getting together for holidays. That didn't happen. He knew that Christmas is religious. So by making this suggestion, he's saying that you need to require the vax in order to get to the rest of the holiday with your family. To come together with your family, to celebrate Jesus with those you love, you need to have the vaccine. The vax becomes a boundary to get to the celebration. If you don't have the vax, you can't get through the boundary. But if you do, it just lets you right through. That's not okay. He's suggesting you let the vaccine separate those you love from getting to you and making memories and celebrating Jesus together. This is just fundamentally wrong. The Bible itself says, multiple times in fact, it happened twice, originating in Deuteronomy 8:3 and written again in Matthew 3:4 after the birth of Jesus Christ. There's one in the Old Testament and one in the New. It says that, quote, "Man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God," end quote. Which this is saying that we shouldn't focus on earthly things. That's the bread, which we need to survive on earth. Back then they ate mostly bread. Instead of the bread, instead of the earthly things, we should focus on every single word from God, every verse of the Bible, or worshiping God or worshiping Jesus. Putting this into the vaccine situation, we shouldn't be focusing on this earthly vaccine. It's just a political talking point by now. It's really just, it's not even entirely just about earth. It's literally just politics, and that's the only thing it really focuses on at this point. Because it's, while the vaccine does help you not get hospitalized, it really just becomes a political thing for the left to exclude people and say that they are the worst. So we should, especially on Christmas, be focusing on Jesus, God. They're the same person. Every word that they said, not making the COVID vaccine a border to celebrating Jesus on Christmas. Really, the left is making Christmas all about these earthly things. Not presents per se, but any earthly thing related to COVID. In fact, Fauci was doing this to kids, like second grade nine-year-olds. He went out and told kids that he vaccinated Santa Claus.
Well, I have to say I took care of that for you because I was worried that you'd all be upset. So what I did a little while ago, I took a trip up there to the North Pole. I went there and I vaccinated Santa Claus myself. I measured his level of immunity and he is good to go. He can come down the chimney, he can leave the presents, he can leave, and you have nothing to worry about. Santa Claus is good to go.
This makes me laugh every time. I can't take it seriously. It's just not good. Not only is the left trying to ruin Christmas time, spending time with friends and family at Christmas, but they're doing this to kids. It's not okay. Kids don't need to be told these things, especially told lies, propaganda, and lies. The kids are like 9. Their brains are the most vulnerable right now. What they learn at that age will be remembered for a long time. If the left is constantly telling a 9-year-old, COVID is the worst, you need to be afraid of COVID, COVID will kill you, if you don't wear masks and get vaccinated and listen to every word we say, they will remember that all throughout their adult life, and that will become the one defining characteristic of their character. That's the only thing that they remember and the only thing they focus on. 3, the Biden administration has been struggling with its vaccine mandates. If you don't know or haven't heard, Biden finally made good on its promise to mandate the vaccine among workers for every company that has more than 100 workers. The mandate has been shut down by courts. It was temporarily shut down, but Biden is still trying to get through with it. Just a couple of days ago, it was passed from the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals to the Supreme Court, thanks to Daily Wire's petition and their lawsuits and the lawsuits of countless other companies. I think it's about 30. It's really not going well for Biden. Now Fauci is trying to make the people of the United States themselves enforce mandates among party guests as a fallback when hopefully the Supreme Court realizes that what they're doing is unconstitutional. He knows Christmas parties are a big thing in the US and a lot of people show up. That's just a common thing throughout most cultures. If he can get a lot of party hosts to make all of their guests get vaccinated, our vaccine numbers just go up. But my trust in Fauci has gone down. It isn't against the Constitution for a party host to tell you to get vaccinated, because you have the choice of whether or not to go to the party. I would just say, no, I'm going to stay home. The mandate for workers is unconstitutional because most companies, even it counts also for a chain restaurant. So say if one McDonald's only had 30 workers, but there were 4 more with 30 workers, that equals, I believe, 150 because there's 5 of them. So 150 workers, that's more than 100 workers, they all have to get vaccinated. It's not by restaurant. It's very unconstitutional because you can't really choose that, and encouraging a mandate for parties is not, though. Stay tuned on more for why mandates are a problem. Vaccine requirements aren't always terrible, like the things that we've been seeing for the COVID vaccine. Schools have mandates for a ton of vaccines, and they're kind of debatable, but some are for diseases, like I brought up in, I believe, my first episode, that some are for diseases that are just like strings of numbers that people haven't heard of before. Others are for diseases like measles or mumps or any of the other diseases with names that sound like they're from the Muppets. These mandates are both good and bad. For one, they protect kids because those diseases are much more likely to hospitalize or kill kids than COVID. On the other hand, though, they are forcing the vaccines on the kids. Seeing these vaccines have a lot more research and don't risk severe side effects for the kids like the COVID vaccine does, it's a little bit better to have the vaccine mandates for measles, mumps, the Muppet vaccines. It's a very different story with the COVID vaccine. It came out only a year ago, so it doesn't have a whole lot of research, especially with the kids because kids are, even from the very small amount of research we've seen, they're at much more of a risk of severe side effects like myocarditis, heart problems from the vaccine. Also considering that the testing, I believe subjects they would be called, for the COVID vaccine testing, there was only like 3,000 kids or something, and that does not get you widespread testing. It's really not much information. As for adults, they've had more research, more test subjects. Side effects seem much less common. Again, however, the vaccine has only been out for a year, so there's no chance we'll know for sure about side effects, say, 10 years down the road. It isn't exactly morally great to mandate the vaccine on adults after this very small amount of research. And now the left has taken on the role of Grinch during Christmas time. This is not because they like Dr. Seuss. They've been doing this for a very long time, whether supply chain making it harder to get gifts in time, inflation making gifts prices rise, and now they're just discouraging getting together for Christmas. No, this is not because they like Dr. Seuss, like I said. This is so that they can keep going on about their useless, fluffy COVID lies that just float around like clouds, but they get everywhere like a dense fog. Most of these Christmas lies have come from Dr. Fauci, considering he is the health advisor to the president, and most of this is trying to be related to COVID, so COVID, it leads to some bad health sometimes, so that would fall under his regiment. Depending on how far back you want to go into this timeline, Fauci has been saying we need to be hesitant about Christmas since last Christmas. He wasn't as crazy about it then, just saying be hesitant about traveling. Anyway, here's him saying that.
To the extent possible, don't travel, don't congregate together. The effect of Thanksgiving is going to be realized 2 weeks from now, literally as we're getting into the traveling season for Christmas and Hanukkah.
Again, that was last year, but he's still encouraging you to treat Christmas and the holidays with utmost caution. Here's him saying that.
Well, it's going to be up to us, Hallie, about what happens to us during the holiday season. We've got to start right now getting anybody who's eligible, and I hope in the next day or two that's going to be essentially everybody that's been initially vaccinated, to get them boosted. And we've got to realize that when you're in a situation where you're having 80,000+ new cases a day, when you are in an indoor setting in which you don't know the vaccine status of the people in a congregate setting indoor, you should wear a mask.
That announcement, however, was last month. He's saying that if we want to have a safe Christmas, we need to have a lot of caution about absolutely everything associated with COVID. To have Christmas, we need to do all of the following: wear masks in indoor settings, make sure you are vaccinated and probably boosted. Also, try and check the vaccination status of your fellow adults, your family. That's his message. Here's my message: don't. This is yet again another one of the examples of letting a bunch of earthly things getting in the way of the sacred holiday of Christmas. It's all over the place today. Now back to Dr. Seuss's How the Fauci Stole Christmas. 2 months ago, Fauci said that it was too soon to tell if we can even gather for Christmas. Here's that announcement.
But we can gather for Christmas, or it's just too soon to tell?
You know, Margaret, it's just too soon to tell. We've just got to concentrating on continuing to get those numbers down.
Now, I mean, I guess it could have been too soon to tell, but I mean, like I said, my trust in Fauci's gotten down. But what he said was still wrong. People who do extravagant Christmas parties start planning their Christmas that far, 2 months or even more ahead. They said that the Christmas decorations for the White House had been planned by, I believe it was Jill Biden, since like May. If it is too soon to tell, say that it is not time to worry. To say that it is too soon to tell promotes more hesitancy about Christmas itself. And now we have Fauci, like I discussed, saying you need to make every guest at your Christmas party get vaccinated. Now we're all probably asking the reasonable question: why? Why cancel the debatably best holiday in the history of the world? I want to call back to a point that I made a few episodes ago about the left's narrative. And essentially, the left decides on a narrative like they would tell a story to kids, sometimes quite literally to kids. They have to make sure that that's what everyone hears, whether through controlling the medias and the news, or just repeating it over and over and over again in press conferences. For COVID, their narrative is that we can never not be scared of it. We always have to live in fear of COVID. They use COVID as an excuse for every time their stupid policies go wrong. So, inflation, supply chain, social issues. Again, I said I think people looting a Gucci store somehow became COVID. It's always a fallback for whenever they don't like what the news happens. When the news happens, they just say, oh, that was COVID's fault. So why the heck are they canceling Christmas? What does this have to do with their COVID narrative? If they can manage to cancel people's Christmas, at least I think, they can make it memorable, not for spending time with family, but for COVID. And if you think about it, I think you remember a lot about Christmases from years ago. Christmas and big holidays like that become embedded in your brain because they were big events and you had a lot of fun at them, hopefully. And you'll probably remember this Christmas. Not because you spent time with family and it was a fun Christmas and you had presents and fun food and everything like that, but because it was a COVID Christmas and you had to wear masks, or you had to be vaccinated to get to your Christmas, or you had to do it over Zoom. And this makes their narrative probably permanently embedded in your brain. They won't have to worry about you forgetting their narrative, but don't think that they will just give up on promoting the fear of COVID. They still have to have a fallback plan because most of their policies go wrong. This is just another strategy to make people afraid of COVID. On that happy note, Merry Christmas! You didn't hear it from Fauci, but you did hear it from me. I hope you'll find time to watch this when you get bored listening to people talk. Hopefully I can get you another episode next week, but you should probably take some time off and spend time with your family. Stay tuned for an announcement either way. Remember to go and check out my new series, Who Is? Enjoy your holidays, and I'll see you later on Right Side of the Road.